I had used Excel as a researcher, as a scientist. I had used Excel for many years. But what I can tell you is that I learned far more about how to use Excel in the 5 years I was a farmer than in the previous 20 years as a scientist and a researcher. And I did it mostly with YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube that will have how-to videos on how to do things with Excel. There's a couple of people who are really, really good. We have this very elaborate spreadsheet that's called a Gantt chart. So a Gantt chart is a process flow. It's used a lot like in building construction, where you have, a lot of different trades. You have to have this done before the electricians can come in, before plumbers can come in, and they do all that with a Gantt chart. And so it's basically this big chart that tells you the whole process flow. And so my husband and I were talking about this when we're trying to expand, like, okay, we have this many chicken tractors. We know the birds take 9 weeks. We have this much space in the brooder. We need the brooder space for 3 weeks. And we're trying to write this all down on a calendar and say, okay, if we get birds here, they move out of the brooder here. That opens up the brooders at this point, and they go to this chicken tractor, and my head was spinning trying to figure out how do we optimize our business. And up to that point, I had never heard of a Gantt chart. My husband he worked for a home builder who used Gantt charts extensively for exactly what I talked about, this whole process control. And he said, we just need Microsoft Project, to develop a Gantt chart. And I looked at it and the cost of Microsoft Project, and this is crazy. And I'm looking at what it is. I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this in Excel. And so I went to YouTube and I searched, and I found this fantastic guy that showed you how to build a Gantt chart in Excel. And so I followed his tutorial and I built the exact spreadsheet Gantt chart that he did. And then I started to tweak it for what we were doing. And I could put in, the date that a batch of chicks would arrive, and they would go into brooder number 1. And so they would occupy brooder number 1 for this much time. And then they'd move to the pasture, and they'd be in chicken tractors number 1, 2, and 3. And then they'd be processed. And so by doing that, I could see, okay, at this point, I have this brooder available, so I could bring another batch of birds in. Oh, but if I do that, I don't have any chicken tractors available. So I've got to push bringing in the next batch of chicks until this date when they can move into this set of chicken tractors. And it all worked excellent until we had, in 2024, a really bad heat wave, and the birds stopped eating because of the high temperatures, and it delayed their growth and when we could process them. And so everything started to back up on me because I didn't build in slop time between batches. But YouTube is the way to learn Excel. And if you don't, Excel is a Microsoft product. It comes with a price tag. You can use Google Sheets. Google Sheets does not have all of the functionality of Microsoft Excel. I'm not sure you could build the Gantt chart in Google Sheets, but you could definitely build every single sheet that I showed in Google Sheets very easily. Pretty much the same formulas and everything to do that. So sometimes the hardest thing is figuring out the phrases and the search terms to use in YouTube to find exactly what you're doing, what you want to do. Because sometimes what you have in your head that you're trying to do and what Excel calls that are very different things. And so it's sometimes hard to figure out the right words to search for to find a tutorial to help you. Learning a spreadsheet program like Excel or Google Sheets, just go to YouTube. There's some really fantastic people on YouTube that have done that. The American Pastured Poultry Producers Association. An organization like APA has an annual conference. The speakers at the annual conference are all other producers. Someone developed a novel chicken tractor idea and gives a 10-minute, 15-minute talk showing pictures of this new chicken tractor that they developed and how it works on their farm. Some of it's people doing sort of like what I just did and showing record keeping and how they're keeping track of things on their farm. It's really peer-to-peer learning and information exchange. It was a fantastic organization for us to be a part of. We learned a tremendous amount from them. There's people in that organization that have been raising pastured poultry for 25, 30 years. No amount of reading books, watching YouTube videos can replace that actual experience and being able to, meet these people, exchange email addresses with them, and knowing if you have an issue, if you have a problem, pick up the phone, send them an email, and they'll probably be able to help you. That was fantastic for us.
This is when we did our enterprise budgets. One of the things in trying to figure out what you're doing is what does it cost to do it? And so what you create a budget, you refine that budget, you keep up with where you buy your things, and then what you actually bought and what it actually costs you. One thing, it creates a place where you have it all in one place, but then you can come to a bottom line of what is it going to cost to farm this year. And then just mapping out where the farm is. This is one I do use for farm tours, so this is not my fancy one. This basically has, when we were in full production with my manager, where we had everything on that 2 or 3 acres that we were doing. When I had workers on the farm, they filled out a timesheet and they listed what they did. And that way I was able to find out how long did it take to do things. I'm kind of a time management freak. So if I ask somebody to come on the farm to do something, I should know how long it takes to weed something, to do harvesting, to do distribution. So we actually had time cards, and at the end of the year I could see that farmers markets took us the most time of the year in that, and that help you make a decision. If I wanted to do wholesale, then maybe I don't want to do that. So keeping up with your budgets, and then your personnel. This is my pay sheets that what came with the accountant, because I used an accountant to pay all the taxes and everything that we had on that. Your invoices that you have. This is my 2018 book, keeping up with everything that you had sold, who you had sold it to, and then actual copies of the invoices are kept here so that you have that to back up any of your Schedule F for your farm records that you would have there. And so my actual harvest records are just in a little binder you get from Dollar General, where you actually keep up with the numbers of things that you harvest. And then you take that with you when you're going to go sell, so that you know what you have left over, what is waste, so that you get an idea of what it takes you to grow for the next year, especially if we're going to do a new product. But that's just a handwritten little thing. Young people do this on their phone today, but I'm a kind of a paper person, and then a lot of these things are entered in to spreadsheets in the evening so that I can have that to move it around and guess what I need to do. An enterprise budget is done by crop. Well, my farm manager was very ambitious, and we grew 90 different things the first year. And so I made her do enterprise budgets on about 50 of those. And we learned that through working with Manage, which is through the Extension Service, and they have specialists that come out and help you learn how to make an enterprise budget. And an enterprise budget basically is from the very beginning of what you're doing. Like, I'm going to decide to grow this, and then where do I find the seed, how I prepare the land, what are all the nutrients I'm going to put out through the year, what it costs to harvest it, and what you sold it for. Working with the farm manager, she had never done enterprise budgets. She had it in her head, and she thought she knew, what it cost to do things, but until she actually put it down on paper and said, for this foot of this crop, this is what I'm getting. And so we went from 90 to about 30 things, because we were also trying out things on this farm. It had not been in that kind of production in a lot of things, and we found out some things didn't grow well on the land that we had, and the way that it was growing. But it really helped us narrow what we were going to do the next year, and we started doing things that people would buy. Unfortunately, that changes almost every 2 or 3 years, because the people that come into the area and buy like some things, the people that are here like some things, and that'll be very different if they're not from here. They want you to grow something exotic because they came from California, and you have to explain, yes, we don't grow that here. But I am a numbers person, I believe that you can grow things just for fun. That's not a problem, but as long as you're making a profit on everything else.